Okay, today we are moving on to the third house, Gemini, the twins. This is an air sign. It is a yang sign, meaning it's positive. It's mutable. What is mutable? That is the energy. It's going to be, here or there. It's not going to be, exactly directed. It's going to be wherever it happens to come out. And by age progression, this is the time in your life where the age is between 5 and 9 when you first begin school, and it's ruled by Mercury, the mind, the planet of the mind. Okay, and it is the house with the widest range of adaptability, and is prone to change. It's a very transitional time, obviously, because, you think of it from spring to summer. We go from rather desolate and cold to things waking up in a new, to harvesting a garden, that kind of transitional type of energy. And it's, again, age 5 to 9. It's the beginnings of our formal education. And basically, it's a time in your life where you're restless. You might, that's where, as in the third house, some of the energy you may see is ADHD, and you're more likely to see it in this age group. And it just may be a transitional type of energy in that sense. That's what makes astrology so beautiful, is that you're able to maybe narrow down some of the things that you think are pathology, and understand that this is developmental and maybe not so pathological as we like to place blame on things. Okay, so it's during your formal or your formative times. Restless to gain information, curious, very curious, quick to absorb new information, witty. Okay, a veritable nature of adaptability and openness, of impulse. Like I said, ADHD can be nosy, right? They don't really maybe always have the best boundaries, right? And why would that be? Well, you think about it. One of the things that they are, third house is the house of brother and sister, okay, as well as the house of communication and technology. And so, this is where you learn the art or the dance of getting along and integration and telling the truth, or perfecting your lies, if you will. You learn how to manage with other people your own age and circumstance, which would be your siblings. Okay, so it is also the house of siblings. There can be some tendency towards gossip from this particular location, so watch confiding. If there's a lot of third house energy, and let me tell you, so a couple of people that come to mind right off the bat, which I've thought about doing natal charts, and again, as I've said, for me, the natal chart thing, I feel rather funny getting into people's business like that, and sharing, and not having interviewed them. I'm speculating at best. So, but Bill Gates, okay, who is information technology, and listen to the gossip that this guy is experiencing right now. My goodness, I mean, he's going through a divorce, and wow, watch the fur fly, okay? So I'm not going to go into what I think of any of it, because it's none of my business. And another one that is a third house kind of guy is Mark Zuckerberg. Interesting, right? Look at these two really high-end performers at the top of the pile, who are definitely deeply influenced as third house characters. Okay. Watch confiding, as they love to talk. Okay, it's because it's all about communication. It's about transportation. Again, siblings. Another area is short distance travel, intelligence, creativity. Okay, and verbal expression. Now, as for medical, it's going to involve the upper body, the shoulders, the arms, the brain, lungs, eyes, ears, Mars, contact with ears. Okay, so I don't know why I put that, issues, contact. I'll have to think about that. Respiratory and nervous system, neck, lymph nodes, larynx, esophagus tube, headaches, and mental breakdowns would be some of the third house kinds of things that you would maybe think of. Now, myself, I think I was entirely raised in my third house, because between the ages of 5 and 9, my sister, brother, and myself were quite an industrious three, and really, raised each other. And so, curiously, you find yourself in these things where you're developing, and who's there to help you develop? That's your brothers and sisters. Oftentimes it's the older sibling who ends up taking along the younger siblings just by example alone. So there's this connection between the siblings in the third house and communication, how we grow and develop. Okay, and then we're going to move on to when you have an Aries moon in the third house. How might that interact? Well, you have the moon, you have Mars, and now you have Mercury, which must all come to some balance and conclusion. It's basically yang, so in that sense it is compatible. But Aries being impulse, Aries moon is likely in this house to point to ADHD or some other type of spectrum disorder that involves slowing the person down enough for them to understand and learn at that phase of 5 to 9 in their lives. And in fact, it would probably be very curious to look at Aries moon in the third and see how many times children are basically having struggle at that point, absorbing information, because, well, they're Aries, they're energetic, they want to go out, they want to kick and scream and dance and play, and not so much play because it's more of a warrior type of energy, but they have an active and energetic mind, and they have a need to get what they want. Okay, so third house of technology, they could be aggressive in technology. This could be your later on in life, your hackers in some regards, because that need to get in there, and that need to aggressively understand and take over someone else's little bit of information. Now, I don't have any planets at all in my third house, but that doesn't mean that the third house is not impacted. Any house that you have in your chart at all, you're going to have impacts. So if you happen to look at your chart and you happen to see that you don't believe you have any third house influence, that would be incorrect, because the entire chart, there's influence, and wherever your Mercury is, you might want to think about that. Might kind of speak towards your third house. There are ways that astrologers look at where your house placements are, or your planetary placements are in your houses, and making sense out of the composition of your particular configuration. So, and this being necessary to say, since we're talking about technical, you're not your chart, you're not your natal chart. Your natal chart is just a snapshot, if you will, of who you are and the potentials you have in becoming something greater than what you've been previously. And that's for all of us, by the way. But just because you do not see something in the third house in your own personal chart, please do note that that does not mean that there is not some real need to think about that. And I know in my case, I've often wondered in relation to the third house. I was an extremely slow to learn and I have Moon in Aries, again, that thought where, how did this impact? So my Aries squares my Mercury, where I might have had some difficulty in how information was absorbed early on. So this is why I say this could actually be an ingredient in the third house of importance is for a younger person. But again, that example of I had a very difficult time during that age of 5 to 9, during what would be my Gemini, or my third house period, I had a very difficult time learning, and in fact would be receiving special education in the library. So, again, that Aries moon makes maybe sitting down and listening to your teacher, and in a highly technical environment that we have now for our children, maybe, something to consider. At any rate, so today, what are we going to use? Well, we're going to just further ask Aries in the third house, and about the third house, we will go ahead and ask the Crow Tarot. We're going to go ahead and knock the memory out, and I will shuffle. And the Crow Tarot, being a little bigger cardstock, and my hands are just quite comfortable shuffling. I have to be very kind of careful about my shuffling. Third house. I'm very fortunate because although I grew up in a very highly dysfunctional home, my sister, my brother, and we raised each other. And in fact, why am I able to recognize and do some of this work that I do currently? Well, my sister is currently a counselor, and she and I together over the years have, as siblings, have done shadow work together. We've done a lot of it. We spend an inordinate amount of time talking to each other about some of the things that we have experienced and some of the things that we continue to experience. So I will put these cards down, and I will put the camera down so you can see me shuffle. I'll go ahead and spread the cards around, well, not shuffle, but spread and select. And there we are. Does that look right? Yeah, that does. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select 5 cards, and I use only 6 cards, and part of my strategy in this is that 6 being one of the divine numbers, and if I really needed clarifiers, I have 3 more, because it's 3, 6, and 9, the triad of numbers, an important prime number process. And I personally think that, in that process. Okay, and now I'm going to do cut 3. If you didn't see cut 2, I cut 2 twice already, and that's number 3. And what happened was my SD card was full. Okay, so what do we get? This is basically the World card. That, yes, the at Aries moon, third house, it covers a lot of ground. It's maybe one of the bigger ones in terms of what all it covers. I mean, when you think about it, what all are you learning between the ages of 5 to 9? And think about how we've changed. I mean, we are no longer, I used to read a book called Spot and Jane, I think it was the name of it. And, now we have technology that, our children have tablets and laptops to use for their education. Things have really changed, and might be that it's better for them, because I know for myself, I adapted very well to technology when it was really available. I was probably one of the first ones to have one of those Atari things, anything that I could push a button and make it do stuff. I was really excited about it. So, kind of tactile, a little bit ADHD, wanted to touch it, feel it, make sure it worked, and everything like that. So the next card I get is the Strength card. That, they're going to be pretty strong and aggressive in that sense, and infinite, infinite energy. Just, they can go, they can do, they can. In that third house, how would I see strength in that third house? Well, and why I chose the Crow Tarot, well, this represents my sister and I, whom we have a very sweet understanding and have had our entire lives. We didn't really have parents to speak of, but we did have each other, and that was, the beautiful blessing in our lives was each other. But, you can see that, that it is kind of a combination in that sense. A third house, Aries moon, it's operating in a state of strength. It's kind of a big one, like I said, the world. Okay, this is our foundation card, and it's operating in a sense of strength, okay? And, And if you think about the word strength and you look at the infinity symbol, it is an 8 turned on its side, is it not? So, just let that, and this is the number 8 in the major arcana series, and the strength card. And then we get the 5 of swords. You're being caught up in our minds, right? This is a type of placement where it's potential that they're going to be caught up in their minds a lot. They're going to be trapped in their thinking. That they're going to be warring themselves how they see things, and largely maybe because they need to slow down and in an introspective way. Do their work and integrate. I mean, because isn't that really for all of us? It's about learning to do what work is yours to do, so that you can function at your highest level, right? All of our charts point to great potential. It is a matter of just understanding who we are and understanding what our strengths are and understanding what our weaknesses are, where we fall in our minds, in our thinking, right, in our mercury, in our brain. Okay, and it comes out to an 8 of cups. Looking things over, going over the details. Now that's interesting because you wouldn't think, but perhaps in the 3rd house that maybe there is a bit more stagnation because there's not something there, that yin and that yang, that positive and that negative, helping you to sort through and to keep it all straight. So it's suggesting in that sense that the moon in Aries in the 3rd house has its points of stagnation, that the things in relationships can, and that I kind of get, because for instance, when you have Moon in Aries, your siblings, they have to kind of remain a little more patient with you. Now, my sister being the older sibling, she was patient with me. She has a Moon in Leo, which I have some Leo. We all have, basically, but mine is a bit more pronounced. And basically you can see the connection in her natal chart to my natal chart and how we are all connected as a family. So, the power of the stars and the way we come together is a fascinating and beautiful story that in its own right deserves recognition. So, it's an 8 of cups, looking over things and, maybe not always being in the sense of a relationship present in a way that honors all of the details exactly. Okay, and that being our anchor card, how it impacts. Well, I mean, we at this time, I think we kind of can easily say we are in some kind of a, I want to say like mass psychosis, because I feel like the way people are behaving towards each other, from around the world at this time of chaos is just really troubling. I mean, I find myself like, why wouldn't you wear a mask if you thought maybe if there's any potential of you harming another, that would be the right thing to do. You would do that, right? But we're seeing a kind of an energy that is saying, no, I have rights and you don't, and leave me be, let me have my way. So we've been struggling in that sense for just the realities of our relationships, and in that regard. In the 3rd house, the information, the way things this can be a house where the truth or the stagnation and the things that need to be looked at don't always get the look they need. But this card here is suggesting that it is the 4 corners of relationships to pay attention to these details, and in an Aries moon placement 3rd house might not be the easiest because it's a little bit powerful. As you can see, lots of cups here, right? There's a lot of cups going on. Might be that the 2 yangs together just kind of create some heartbreak, okay? And that being the 3 of swords, where a person can be caught up in their heads. And I think I can explain I think I get what that means. And that is that, like, for myself, a lot of times with my brother and my sister, I would be kind of stuck up in my head, and I would feel kind of alone and lonely. I had an illusion of aloneness. I wasn't in that sense, as an Aries moon, a very popular child because, well, I kind of function to the beat of my own drum, you know. You could see me for miles being my own human, you know, not necessarily going to the beat of the drum of another. But in that sense, that energy, when you have this, you do function a bit in a state of aloneness. So that also needing to be brought forward, that this in the third house might be kind of how it really is between the siblings, that they often feel isolated. I have another child that well, he's an adult now, but he has an Aries moon, and the level of isolation he still experiences with his siblings is notable. So, you know, this being that maybe when you have the Aries moon, given certain circumstances, it can be difficult to overcome if you are not, if you need integration. Let me just put it that way, if you need integrative work. So, you know, with that, I thank you very much for, I'm going to put my camera up. I thank you for joining me here today. And let me just make sure, yeah, that'll do. Anyway, I thank you for joining me here today. So this is Aries moon, third house, also medical, and of course I mentioned a couple of famous people, but you know, not that I'm not really, I used to work at Microsoft very briefly, so you know, there's lots I could say about that, but I just won't. But at any rate, thank you so much for joining me here today. And if you feel so inclined, please go over to www.twiggie.com and check out all of our reports that we have available. And please do join myself and my lovely co-reader in booking an appointment online. We offer a wide range of services, and myself at this time, I have my astrology first year behind me. So please do look me up, and I thank you very much for joining me here today.